Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. In this presentation, we will discuss the type of project where you upgrade your version of PowerBuilder. And apart from the migration itself, we will see how to prepare, anticipate the project, how to streamline your code, because if you clean up and enline the code, then it's less workload for the migration itself, and then how to secure the changes, and finally how to document the project to get a proper documentation of the outcome of the migration. So first of all, let's discuss how to master the existing application. If in particular, if you have this large, complex, probably old application, you need to understand the code properly before you can make some change if needed during the migration. And there are different diagrams and graphs and representation to help you understand the code. I will show you a few examples. You can generate a data model representing the database structure, a CRED matrix where you will see the dependencies between object and data. We'll see how to generate call graph to understand chains of call in the code, understand the inner working of the application, if you like. And finally, the dependencies between the PowerBuilder code and stored procedures, web services, or DLLs. So this is Visual Expert. And first of all, let me show you a bit how to start using it. So first of all, you have to create a project to select your code. In this case, maybe I will be using a PowerBuilder application located in this target. Then if that's it, I can start analyzing the code. Otherwise, I can add more code like SQL Server code located in the database or in files, for example, enter the credential. And then when I'm done, I start the application. So for now, we'll be using this sample project that I've already analyzed. So when the analysis is completed, as you can see, you can find object and dependencies in this tree view on the left. When you need to see something at the code level, you would see that on the right-hand side. And on the left, you have a list of features to find some important information or get some important result while exploring the code. And this list will depend on the type of object selected here. This is for an event. If I select a user object, I have another set of feature. A window is different, etc., etc., PBL, etc. Okay, so for starter, let's create a data model of our application to understand the database structure. I can see the list of tables found during the code analysis. If I select a bunch of tables, I can select all of them if I like, come here and generate a data model. This will appear here. Then I can expand full screen this diagram. You see by default, tables are collapsed to save some space. You can expand them one by one or all of them if you like. And you have a typical representations of tables, relationship, foreign keys, primary keys, data type, etc. You can even, if you like, edit this data model. If you want to share more detail with your colleagues, you can add comments, you can move object around, add additional object. And when you're done, you save, you come back, you can also print, edit, whatever you like. So that's the first angle to analyze the application. A second option would be to generate a CRED matrix. CRED stands for create, read, update, delete. This is representing the relationship between the PowerBuilder code or the code in general and the data in your database. You can start from the point of view of the table or from the point of view of the code. So if you want to start by the tables, you would select, let's say, those 3 tables, for example, or more if you like, generate a matrix. This will create an Excel file with the matrix we're looking for, where you can see like that. Let's expand a bit. So this is the table product in this column, and you can see that this object is a data window object located in this PBL, and it's reading and updating the table. That's what it's called a CRED matrix, because you see the type of access for each object accessing a table. So and so on. You see those are PowerBuilder objects. You see stored procedure triggers from the database, etc. Because in this sample project, I've been including both PowerBuilder and database code. I could generate exactly the same table, the same matrix, not starting from the data, but starting from the procedures. If I do this and generate a CRUD matrix, I will have the same type of result, except I would define like this the rows, and then I will discover which tables in columns are used by this selection of procedures. Example number 3, I can generate graph, a call graph, representing chains of calls, like a business process, if you like, in your application. For instance, when the user is performing a particular action, this is triggering function number 1, that is calling function number 2, number 3, number 4, etc. So this can happen at PowerBuilder level. So at PowerBuilder level, I would have something like this, call graph right here, where you would see that this event is calling another event, which itself is calling a function, etc., etc. So you can explore this in the tree view or in the code itself, because when we represent the code, we also include hyperlinks anytime there is a reference. So I can, like that, I can go from one function to another, or come back and forth, like pretty much like a web browser with web pages and hyperlinks inside. And like that, you can explore your code in both ways. This is to show you an example on a PowerBuilder object calling each other. You have the same on the database side, where you can generate the same type of graph, except here you would have different type of item, not only PowerScript calling each other. So what do we have here? We have, for example, a procedure calling another procedure, referencing a table. This table is related to a foreign key constraint that is updating this other table, another constraint, and which is updating another table, executing a trigger, calling a procedure, etc. So you have a better understanding of all what is executing, all what is happening in your application anytime a particular piece of code is executed. Example number 4, and that's going to be it for understanding our application. You might need to discover for this existing application what are its dependencies with external items such as web services, stored procedure, DLL, etc. So you can start from at application level, or for a particular PBL, if you like, or object, depending the granularity you're interested in. But in any case, the feature is pretty much the same. For example, you can see which web service is used by this application. So in this case, it's a small application, and I'm calling 2 web services. If I select the first one, I can see that in this library, this function includes some reference to a particular web service right here. And there's another example right here. This is for web service. I can do the same for example, DLL functions that are called by the PowerBuilder code. So there's a number of, you see, DLL and DLL functions called for each of them. If needed, I can see, this is the declaration, that I can see where it is actually used somewhere in my code. So in this library, this object and this function is calling this DLL function. If you're migrating your code, sometime it's a 64-bit migration. You're going from 32 to 64. Then you might need to know which 32-bit DLL is called and where to replace it to the proper code to the 64-bit version of this DLL. That's one of the different cases where you need to track the dependencies between PB and DLLs. Last example, if you want to know the stored procedure called, it's pretty much the same concept right here. So there's a number in this case of stored procedure called from the PowerBuilder code. Again, if I select each of them, I would see that this PBL includes this window, and in the click event, there is a reference to this particular procedure, another example here, another here, etc., etc. So that's it for understanding the code. Then you may need to clean up the code to remove the, basically unused object or everything that is not necessary. That's less code to maintain, less code to upgrade in the short term. It's beneficial in all cases. So for that, we may want to find a duplicated object. We want to know also which object are existing but are not referenced in any way. And sometimes you have also some empty methods like, a function that is no longer used. So the code is still there, but everything is commented. Also something you might want to get rid of. It was kept there temporarily, but then it became permanent and everybody forgot about this. So maybe it's a good occasion to find it and remove it. So I'm coming back to Visual Expert. And if I do the three examples we just mentioned, I can select simply the application itself, and I will find here if there are duplicated components in my application. And in this case, we have, for example, this window. Duplicated for PowerBuilder is quite simple. It's same type, same name. And you know probably that for the PowerBuilder runtime, if that's the case, two objects with the same name and same type, it will take into account only the first one or the last one, I don't recall exactly, but only one of them found during the execution of the code. The other one will be ignored. That's potentially going to cause a problem. So here we have two windows in two different PBL with the same name, user object, data window. Easy to get rid of them once you know where they are. The same goes for unused object. You can do that at application level, or if you want to focus on a particular PBL, even a particular object, the same concept is available. It would tell you which object is not used, which means we were not able to find any type of reference during the code analysis. So you can still have the possibility of a dynamic code. That's what we call it, possibly unused, but it's probably going to be unused anyway. And the last point we mentioned are empty methods. Again, application level, library level, whatever you like. It will find all those functions, that do not contain any active code. You can keep them if you like, but removing them, won't change much the behavior of the application. So that's less code to verify, upgrade, maintain, etc. So that's it for our step number 2. Cleaning up the code. Now, you start the migration. Most of it will be done automatically by the PowerBuilder, migration process. And then you may end up with some changes that you have to make manually, in which case, like in every case of change you make, you probably want to run what we call an impact analysis in order to avoid breaking the code when you're changing it. You want to avoid regression bugs. So there are two ways to do that. The first one is to run an impact analysis for the particular piece of code that you are about to change. The second way is to generate an object dependency diagram to have a broader view of dependencies between objects. So let's take a few examples with that. So we're back in Visual Expert, and here I selected a few objects to show you different type of example. The concept of impact analysis, which means show me all what is depending on this piece of code that I'm about to change. This concept applies to any type of object. You can make an impact analysis if you change something in the PowerBuilder code, in the database, in an object, a function, a variable, pretty much everything. If it's on a PowerBuilder function, for example, it's quite simple. You open the library, the object, the function, and then you click on impact analysis to see where this particular function is called. And if you select each item in the result, in the source code, it will highlight and show you exactly where it is called in case you want to update this method as well. If, for example, if I have to rename this function, obviously, I also have to rename every place where this function is called. Or if I change the prototype of this function, the same goes here. I may have to update every reference to the function by updating the prototype as well. Otherwise, I would have a problem when running the application. So this will give you an exact list of all the references found to that particular function. That's for a PowerBuilder function. It would be the same for a PowerBuilder variable or something that you change in the database. Like this is the table product and the column ID. If I want to run an impact analysis, I can select the type of dependency I'm interested in. So let's pick a bit of, select everything. Okay, so it will tell me that this column is used. You see, in this PBL, there's a data window with a retrieve SQL that is referencing this column, product.id. This is another data window. This is a window with an item change that is also referencing the column. You know, in the where clause, there is an embedded SQL in the item change event, including a reference to this particular column. So more PowerBuilder object, and those are dependencies on the database side. So right here I have, let's see, for example, a trigger. This trigger includes a reference to the same column, a select in another trigger. This is, let's see, for example, a procedure, another procedure, etc., etc. So impact analysis for a database column. The same goes for a stored procedure to see where this procedure is called. For we mentioned before the dependencies with DLL, so a DLL function impact analysis is also available to see where this particular DLL function is used everywhere in the PowerBuilder application. So this is very useful to see where one item is referenced, but more generally, you can also see multiple dependencies between multiple objects. This is what we call object dependency matrix. So it goes like this. First of all, I need to select a bunch of objects for which I would like to generate this matrix. So let's take all the objects in this particular PBL. Then I have this option available, object dependency matrix. And if I generate this, I get another type of Excel with another type of matrix where you see I have in rows and column all the objects I selected, and then I can see which is calling which. Where do I have dependencies? So you have the caller and you have the callee. So in other words, this object is referencing this one, or this menu is somehow referencing two other objects here, etc., etc. And this concludes our part where we would make sure that a change is not breaking the application by analyzing the consequence of a change, by analyzing the dependencies with this item that I'm about to change during the migration process. Now, once I'm done with the migration, I would like to document the outcome in case somebody needs to understand what has been changed or what was the state of the application before and after, for example. So there are basically two options for that. First of all, I can keep track of all the code changes made during the migration. That's the first thing. Or I can document a snapshot of the application before and after the migration to get a detailed source code documentation that is, of course, generated automatically by the tool. And let me show you how this works. Okay, so first we're going to see the difference, the changes made between the two versions. I can do that at application level or PBL level, any way I like. So for example, if I want to compare these this PBL before and after the migration, it will generate a short list of the object that has been added, removed, or modified with a color code to indicate which is which. So when it's blue, it means this item has been modified. Green means it's a new item. And if I were to have a red color, it means that it has been removed, during the process between the previous and the current analysis. And if I focus on one particular modified object, in the source code, I can see more about what has been changed. And in particular, I would see when something green has been added or red removed. This is for the code, the PowerBuilder side. I can do the same on the database side. In particular, let's take at the schema level to have a broader view. I can compare and see the same. So I have new items in green, blue items modified, and red items that have been removed down the road during the process. And for example, if I select one modified object, this is the table sales order item, then I can see exactly what has been changed in the definition of this table. Good. That's for listing the differences between the two versions before and after migration. And at any point in time, I can capture a snapshot, document a snapshot, a particular state of the application, because since I'm generating the documentation automatically, why bother if I need several snapshots? It doesn't hurt to create them as long as I want them. So I would come here, and then I have different settings. I can select where, choose a style, select, to create a documentation for the entire project or only some selected items, a particular PBL, for example, or a few objects, but in my case, it's going to be the entire item probably. The language of the documentation I generate, I can do that manually because it's just a one shot, but if I want to generate automatically on a weekly basis or daily basis, this documentation, I can do that as well. I can generate it on the fly, and then I get this type of result where I see, the different sections here, but I can also navigate from this main page. And I will, find the traditional object. This is my PBS. Those are the objects. For each object, I can, for example, this is a window where I see the container hierarchy, the ancestors of this window. I can check out the ancestor if I want to. For each, for this particular object, I would see all the variable and constant. And anytime I have a variable, I can see if it's referenced somewhere. I have the event of the object, and I can go down to the event level with the source code and different information, including impact analysis. I have the list of controls and their event for this window, and I have a representation of the architecture of the window. So in this case, there is, for example, there is a tab folder with 2 tab pages, and here I have a control data window with a data window inside. Then this is for one object, but any type of object would be documented on the PowerBuilder side and database side. And I could generate this documentation, like I said, before and after the migration to get a good overview of what has been done or what was the previous state and the final state. So this concludes our presentation for the PowerBuilder migration, the PowerBuilder upgrade. This is a reminder of the key resources you can find out there in the Appeon community about PowerBuilder. And in case you want to move forward with Visual Expert, you might want to visit the website, visual-expert.com, because right here you would have a description of the key feature, because we just saw a few of them, but there's a lot more if you want to know exactly what is covered. You can download a copy, and I do recommend you take a look at this section where you would have all the tutorials that you need from installing, configuring a copy to creating a project to analyze your code and using the key features. And down the road, if you have any question, you just post a ticket to the support team that will get back to you. Thank you for watching this presentation. Bye-bye.